Okay, welcome to the very first episode of the Rugby League Outsiders podcast. My name's Craig Williams.
My name's Karl Walker.
And in this episode, we want to introduce ourselves because, you may have listened to a couple of our interviews at our podcasts, but then actually not know a great deal about us and our history with the game, why we do this podcast and actually what we're looking to achieve as well. So that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to do it in the format where I'll interview Karl will interview me, and then see where we end up at the end. So are you up for that?
Yeah, go on. I'll go first then.
Go on then. What? You asking questions?
Yeah, I'll ask you a few questions first. So, obviously, we've known each other. We've only really known each other a couple of years, haven't we?
Yeah.
Both moved down to the region from up north. So I just want to ask you about your actual rugby league background. How long have you actually been playing? Who have you played for? Where have you played? That's the sort of thing I want to know. I'm sure our viewers will as well.
Yeah, so I was a little bit late coming to the game. I remember my mum always tells a story. It was like 6-year-old. My older brother was 7, and my stepdad was massive, into both codes. He played both codes, and he actually played at a really good standard as well. And we used to go and watch him as little toddlers. Well, we didn't watch him. He was playing, and we'd be playing in the car park or whatever. Anyway, they decided we should give it a go. So we went to the local rugby union club, Halifax Vandals, and my mum, I don't remember it. My brother remembers it because he fell down these concrete steps, hurt himself, like would never ever had anything to do with sport ever again after that. I remember, my mum says I just stood on the corner of the pitch crying in the freezing cold wind and rain. And then I remember like a big, massive communal hot bath. You remember the old hot baths you used to have it,
Yeah.
I remember this thing, like I got in it and it was like my freaking skin was just melting off because it was that hot, and I was like, what the fuck is this thing we call rugby? And it put me off, and it put me off for a long time. And I did a bit of running as a kid. I did a few other bits of sports and all that kind of stuff, but I started getting interested in it about 12, 13. And I think it sounds weird, but I just felt ready to kind of do something a bit violent, you know what I mean? A bit, like I'd done, like I said, lots of running, lots of cross country and all that. But I wanted like the contact. And I remember having a conversation with my stepdad sort of saying, I'm thinking of playing rugby, but I don't know whether to play union or play a league. And he says, well, what's the pros and cons? He asked a few questions around it. And I says, well, I'm thinking union because like the rucks and the mauling, that might be a bit more physical than the league. I mean, well, don't be so sure. Anyway, he took me to a local club, Ovenden. It was quite a well-known club in the amateur sort of things. Yeah. And I had a season there as like a under 14s, and I was like a fringe player. Just about getting on the pitch for the last 10 minutes. I really didn't do a great deal, and there were some great players in that team. Then I moved to a local club, Elland, and
Elland Boxers.
Yeah, Elland Boxers, yeah. And I kind of started finding my feet, and I started doing all right. I started playing at school as well, and I don't think I was particularly skillful. I was just an hard grafter. I just worked hard, and eventually I went for like a trial and ended up playing at Huddersfield Academy. So I did a couple of seasons at Huddersfield Academy as like an emerging academy team at Huddersfield. As Super League was just about to start, and then as sort of Super League kicked in, Huddersfield did a big move to what was then the McAlpine Stadium, and a lot of the academy lads started going off and doing other things because they didn't get picked up with pro contracts and all that. And I went and joined the Marines. Joined the Marines for the first 3 years. The Marines, I was playing rugby league every couple of weeks. It was just getting started in the Marines, and I was playing it. And then eventually, I had an officer at the time who was like, "Look, we need to write reports on you for promotion and that kind of stuff, but we never see you. You're always playing sport." So I had to stop playing rugby league, and then I joined the boxing squad. So I was doing that all the time. I had a bit of a break. I had about a 4 or 5 year break from rugby league where, all of a sudden there was like Kosovo was kicking off, then eventually Iraq, Afghanistan and all that kind of stuff. And I did like loads of operations, and then eventually I got a draft to Somerset, and Somerset had just started a team, Somerset Vikings.
Yeah.
So I started playing again in Somerset, and I was really shocked, as well as the Royal Marines team, and I was really shocked like at the standard of it. I thought it was a great it was mostly Marines that was playing in the team, but it was a great standard. And then so I played there for a few seasons, and then I moved up to Lincolnshire. I left the Marines, moved up to Lincolnshire, and there was no real team around me. So again, I had a break again for another few years. After about 3 or 4 years, moved here to Bridgnorth in Shropshire. Of course, Telford was the local team, and I went along, started playing touch rugby there, and then started playing at Telford Raiders. Had a couple of years, and in the blink of an eye, suddenly I'm 45, and that's me. I'm almost done. I'm not, I'm pretty sure that
now we're going on this new adventure.
Yeah, we're on this new podcasting adventure. So that's it for rugby league. I mean,
can I just touch on the marine side of the rugby league? Because someone who's never been involved in any armed forces like myself, what does that look like? Is there an inter tournament or
yeah? So
how does it work?
Yeah, similar to like representative rugby. You've got like your unit side.
Yeah.
So that'll be if you've got a unit where you've got 700 lads based, between 500 and 700 guys, they'll have a unit side. If you play well for your unit side, then you can go and play for the corps side, which is to the Royal Marines. Then potentially, as the Royal Marines are part of the Navy, you can then go and play for the Navy side. And then there's also, the Army, RAF, Navy will play each other as well.
Right.
So there'll be that inter-service competition. And then if you do all right there, then you can go and play combined services. So British Armed Forces might play Australian Armed Forces, or you might play Great Britain Police, or something like that. So there's loads of opportunities to think. That my ceiling was Navy. I played a couple of Navy games,
right.
And then I had to, then I was on operations and soldiering and stuff. I joined the Marines for really, but and it's actually it's quite an experience because if you can get the time off, usually what would happen is you'd have like a training camp for a week, and then in the run up for a game,
Yeah.
So you're almost like a pro athlete for a week, and then you play at the end. So yeah, and rugby league when it first started, when I joined, it was just a fledgling sport. There weren't many people playing it. All the things that we talk about, with union players, a little bit reluctant to play league, and sometimes you get the old dinosaurs that just won't entertain it. There was a lot of that as well. So definitely had to break down a few barriers. But yeah, I don't know if that describes it.
Yeah.
But nowadays it's really hotly contended. Every year we used to have a game. So the Royal Marines and the Paras, lots of rivalry, for years and years. And the Marines Paras match every year now is an absolute, spectacular. It's great to watch. Like,
is it a bit old school? Is it still biff off?
Yeah, it's a little bit biff off, but they have great players. They've got a lot of Fijian guys that come in and just fast, hard hitting, great players. They're all fit. They recruit from some of the tough communities around the country, as do the Marines. You know what I mean? So you end up with a lot of Northerners that have grown up playing league. So it's always a great match. Always a great match. So. And there's a few digs in there.
Do you still watch out for the results, or is it? I know they're usually in the Challenge Cup first round. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, the Navy. I don't think the Marines are playing Challenge Cup, but I do sort of keep an eye out, and I've still got some mates that are not necessarily playing, but are still involved, whether it's coaching, administration, that kind of stuff. So I do keep an eye out and what have you. I loved it. I love playing rugby in the forces. It was one of those things where, when I first joined the forces, there wasn't a great deal going on, war operations, that kind of stuff, and it was great times because you went traveling all over the world, doing exercises and training and what have you, or played lots of sport, and I was lucky enough to do that for a good few years.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that's it. Right, so over to you. I mean, there's a lot of similarities in your background to mine. You brought up in Bradford, I was brought up in Halifax, both relocated to the Midlands.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be quite interesting, like you did with me. So just talk to me about how you got started, what attracted you to the game, and then work through the timeline to actually arriving in the Midlands. And then I've got another question for you once you get to the Midlands.
Yeah, so I started playing rugby league at a really young age. I think I started at 6 or 7 year old. I don't think it was out of choice. I think my dad decided that's what I was doing, and he took me down. I've never really had any interest in football or anything like that. I've always just been rugby league. It's grew up in Bradford, like you say, so it's part of your DNA, really. I remember my dad taking me down to Wadsall Stadium. We used to go watch Bradford Northern, as it was then. Absolutely freezing, stood on them cold terraces in what could only be described as the strangest climates in the country. Stood on a box as a young lad, watching Bradford, but absolutely loved it despite the weather conditions. And then my dad took me down to a local side called Whipsey Juniors, it was then. I don't think they'd only been going a year. My dad got involved with the coaching. And I started playing then at about 7 or 8 year old. Like I say, my dad went through his coaching badges. He eventually became the coach of our team. So I grew up basically playing for my dad's team, which was a little bit difficult in itself because you don't want to feel like you're being picked as part of the team because you're the coach's son. So you do have to hold your own weight, really. I played a year above my age because at the time that we started the team, we didn't have enough players at my age. They were all a year older than me, so I played a year above my age through most of my junior career. And Whipsey Warriors developed as a club, and it eventually went on to have sort of 10, 12 junior teams, and it eventually went right up to open age, which is how I played. I did play some representative rugby, so it was like the Bradford Bulls Academy as it was then, but I think it was called like the Bradford Schools or something like that. So I played representative rugby for them while I was playing for Whipsey. I was also doing a bit of cricket and stuff in between as well. I think when I'm about 12 years old, I think I was playing sport nearly every day of the week. So I went on to play for Bradford, played for Whipsey, played a bit for West Yorkshire as well. And that was it really. So I was a one club man basically. I never really wanted to play for other clubs. I had friends at school who played for my local rivals. A few lads played for Dudley Hill, and we didn't like each other. Whipsey and Dudley Hill, we never liked each other. They were always the big boys of the city. Dudley Hill and West Bowling were I
remember playing West Bowling.
Yeah, they were the two big clubs.
Were South Bradford as well? Was that a team as well? South Bradford?
I think so. At one time, yeah. So Dudley Hill and West Bowling were the two big teams in Bradford, and Whipsey was like an emerging team. And eventually we did go on to start beating them. So I've got a lot of fond memories. We used to play against Keighley Cougars. They had their junior set up. We used to have some real battles with them. And my other memories of really playing were while I was at the Bradford schools, we used to get sent away to, I think it was a boarding school. I can't remember exactly where it was. I think it was somewhere over York. It was some sort of boarding school run by monks, and we used to go there for like a training camp. We'd spend a long weekend there or a week there, and it was just absolute mischief, to be honest with you. But I got really fond memories of that. Playing games up in Gateshead on a Wednesday night when you've got school the next morning. It was some crazy times. But so that was my junior career. Played for Whipsey. at the time we never had an open age team, so I dabbled in rugby union. I played a bit of rugby union with Whipsey Rugby Union. They sort of merged with Whipsey Rugby League. We all played out of the same club. And then I met my lovely wife on holiday and eventually moved down here. I didn't play any rugby for a few years. Then decided I started playing a bit of rugby union down at Dudley Kingswinford. Didn't really take to it that I was all right, but it wasn't my game. It wasn't. I didn't fit in with it right well. I wasn't built like a rugby union player. It wasn't in me. So started looking around for a rugby league team. Realised there was a team in Wolverhampton. Went to play for Wolverhampton. Played there for a couple of years. We did actually play against Telford. I can remember Fred and Alex being the coaches while we played against them. I remember had a few battles there. Wolverhampton sort of disbanded. It sort of it just eventually it was a lot of rugby union players that we just kind of used to ring up on. It was literally a case of who you playing today? Get on phones, get somebody in. It was that sort of a club, and then I admired Telford because it seemed like a really good setup. Like first time I spoke to Fred, I thought, right, okay, I might have to travel a bit further to go play for Telford, but it's a proper club that they were up there winning the Midlands League. So went to play for Telford. I think it was 2013 or something like. I think that in the first year there was me and another fellow Northern who'd moved to the area called Steve Taylor. He came over to Telford with me as well, and sort of our first year was absolutely fantastic. That was the year we won the league over at Coventry, the infamous Battle of Coventry, as it was. Absolute humdinger of a game that was. If you can watch it back on YouTube, it's been heavily edited to remove a lot of the fighting. So yeah, we won the league with Telford. Went on to play in the Harry Jepson Cup, which they're my fondest memories of playing down here. Went and played Gloucester in the quarterfinals. We got to the semi-finals, and we played Gateshead in the semi-final up in Wakefield. I think it was Stanley or somewhere. We ended up playing that. But by that point, we were broken bodies. We just about patched a team together. I think half the team was injured that game. We took a bit of a hiding. But playing in the Midlands, that's probably one of my fondest memories. That and 2017 when we beat Sherwood in the grand final as well. The thing I remember about the Harry Jepson Cup, I don't know if it registered with all of the other lads, because whoever won the Harry Jepson Cup was going to be in the first round of the Challenge Cup, and that's what I was telling myself. You're 2 games away from playing in the first round of a Challenge Cup, and if they do bring that back this year, I think that'll be a big draw for people. So I played for Telford for around 10 years or something like that. I've been broken for the last couple of years. I'm sort of coming to the end of my playing days. It takes me 2 weeks to recover. I feel like I can still play to a decent standard, but my recovery time now is it takes forever. Can't walk at work, and I think Kelly, bless her, just fed up of seeing me getting knocked out, and I went to cart me home from being shipped off in an ambulance. So now we're at this stage now where I'm focusing on the media side and trying to promote Telford, and obviously we've going on this new venture. See where this'll take us.
Yeah, it's quite exciting. I mean, to be honest, it was a bit of a flash thing, wasn't it? It was like, okay, well, maybe we could give this a go. And within a week, the social media profiles were set up. We'd organised a date. We'd organised a couple of guests. We had a rough idea of what we're going to do. You'd banged out a logo, very, very similar to Bradford Bulls, but I'll let it go. I'll let it go. But and I think if we can carry this momentum on and do half of the ideas that we've got, it can only benefit us and the wider game in the Midlands. So it's probably a great point to talk about, like, the aims of this podcast. Like, if we was to fast forward 12 months, let's say, you and I met for a pint in 12 months' time, how would you know that this has been a success? Like, what would have had to happen?
I'd just like to think that within the Midlands area, the people know who we are, and almost try and get to a level where people want to be mentioned on this podcast. They want to come on the show and be guests of ours. That would be, you know, we can aim even higher than that. But that, for me, that's what I want to do. I want this podcast to become a name within the Midlands, and really help drive the game forward and help grow the game, and new emerging clubs coming through, help promote them. That's the aim for me, really. What say yourself?
I think just having it as part of general conversation on, you know, you're on a touchline somewhere, a Midlands game, and someone goes, "Oh yeah, well, I was listening on the, you know, on the Outsiders podcast, and they mentioned you did," and just for it to be just part of general conversation, I think people are listening to it, people are getting value from it, you know, and that's, you know, we could look at figures and stats and how many people are sharing it on social media and all that kind of stuff. But I think that'll be the moment I go, you know what, we're doing all right here, and we're on the right track. So just kind of looking forward then. We'll keep this episode quite short, you know, talking about us and getting to the great guests. Break the microphone. If there's people listening to this first one, what would you encourage them to do? Like, what can other people do to not only drive the podcast forward and get involved, but also elevate the profile of rugby league in the Midlands?
I think the social media side of it's really important these days. I think, like you mentioned before about sort of newspapers back in our day, you know, when we were playing, if you were in the newspaper, that was a big deal, wasn't it? But now social media, TikTok, Facebook, I'd like the clubs to get involved with it. Get involved, be looking to come on here, sharing it amongst themselves. We need to make it like a real community project. That's my idea, and that's what I want people to start doing, really.
Yeah, and just some of the practicalities. Obviously, we're based in, well, this studio is based in Bridgnorth. It's just like the corner of my office at home. But all this kit that you see on the cameras and the stuff that we're using, it is pretty mobile, you know.
Yeah.
If there are clubs out there, you know, a little bit further afield or can't travel or whatever, you know, we're more than happy for one of us or both of us to go across and to, you know, to record a podcast there and perhaps get a player, do an episode with a player at a club, a coach at a club, a parent at a club, you know what I mean, whatever, and you know.
Yeah, we can do pre-game interviews and things like that. I'd like to, you know, if we've got a big game going on in the Midlands, I'd like to promote it. We could even have rival players on the podcast to, you know, to promote the game. It's got to be positive, but I think a bit of local rivalry in there, get people involved, get people listening. That's what I want to see happen, really. Yeah,
for me, I think stories are really important. I think there's a whole load of great stories out there, and, you know, and people love stories and love hearing about stories. And I think, you know, we've had a couple of conversations with people and, you know, asking them about Midlands Rugby League, and they've shared stuff with us already, and we're like, I never knew that happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How amazing is that? And some stuff's quite humbling as well. So I'd encourage people to share the stories with us. And then the other thing is, I think we need feedback. You know, they say in sport that feedback is the breakfast of champions, and, you know, we want to make this a champion podcast, you know, a champion platform to promote everything that happens in the Midlands regarding rugby league, and we can only get that right with feedback. So, you know, we need absolutely. Comments, we need emails sent in. You know, both got broad shoulders. If you've got Ash, as long as it's constructive, we'll take it. You know, we might not. Yeah,
I don't want people there. Yeah, it's these two bloody northerners.
Yeah. But bit of feedback, a bit of guidance. Just tell us what worked well, what didn't work so good. If whether it's technical, you don't like the lighting, whatever it is, I don't care. But I know if we get feedback, we can make this something that people look forward to listening to.
The thing is as well, I think I'm looking forward to 2023 in Midlands Rugby. I think there's a lot to be positive about, to be honest with you. Rugby League World Cup was absolutely fantastic. I think numbers of people playing the sport in these regions are going to be bigger this year than they've been for a long time. COVID certainly didn't help.
What are you basing that on?
Just my gut feeling. Honest gut feeling. I look around at the other clubs and what they've started doing to promote themselves from the last couple of months, and already I get the feeling it's going to be a decent year. Like I say, the Harry Jepson tournament coming back at the end of the year, that'll be massive for us. And then obviously Midlands Hurricanes, it's the region's now got a proper team that we can get behind.
Well, and as well as when I asked you that question, it was loaded because I completely agree. I just wondered what you was basing it on, and I agree with you. From just setting up the social media profiles for this podcast, I've had to dig into other teams. You know what I mean? Follow their profiles and all that, and it's like there's some great stuff going on. The women's and girls game, the wheelchair game. There is a lot going on. And a bit of a call to arms for any club or any player or fan out there. You might sit there and think, oh, we've just had a new signing. Oh, no, but nobody will be interested in that. We are interested in it.
Absolutely.
And people that listen to this podcast are interested in it. So share it. Just share the news. And on your own platforms, we'll retweet it. Tag us in stuff and we'll share it as well. And, it all starts there. And you're right in what you're saying. I tuned into the local news last night, and all of a sudden there's a rugby league team like promoting themselves on the news, and I just couldn't ever imagine that happening before.
Well, we have had, haven't we? We had the Coventry Bears before, who Midlands Hurricanes have. I don't know how it's come about, to be honest. I don't know if they've taken over the franchise or what, if it's just a brand new team. But either way, Midlands Hurricanes, a brand new team. And when it was Coventry Bears, it didn't really feel like the whole area could get behind them because it was Coventry.
Right.
That may sound wrong, but from me, I used to play for Telford against Coventry Bears. So then to support Coventry Bears as my local team, it never felt quite right. But with the Midlands Hurricanes, I feel like it's a tree and it goes up, and all the local teams in the area, I think, can get behind them. And not only that, they've got the best facilities. They've got better facilities than any of the Super League teams, haven't they? Really, playing at the Commonwealth Games Stadium this year. So that's what I mean when I say I'm positive about the sport at the minute in this region, is because of things like that. I think the at ground level, the amateur clubs are growing and getting stronger. We're doing things that the northern clubs might not necessarily be doing. There's a lot of people working hard to promote the game around here, and then, like I say, now we've got a semi-pro team that we can get behind as well. So I'm pretty positive at the minute. Yeah.
So in the next couple of weeks, what can just in your? I know we haven't got a load in concrete, settled down. But what can people? Why should people tune in next week?
Well,
and the week after,
they should tune in because we're gonna have some fantastic guests. I think. I mean, we haven't got anything nailed down yet, but just speaking to Fred tonight, there's like you said, the stories already out there, and we need to tap into that to help promote the game. I think, like I say, if we've got local rivalries going on, we're going to push that up. It'll be bigger than State of Origin, I think.
yeah. Derby versus bloody
Nottingham. Or something. Yeah. But yeah, that's the idea of the podcast, and that's what I hope to do.
Just talking about the difference you've made. So obviously, we're both connected to Telford Raiders, and this really came about because Like I noticed a change in Telford's social media.
Yeah.
You've done that. You've drove, whatever the word is. You've sort of pushed that forward. Just talk to me about like how did you get involved? What's your kind of strategy? What's your aim from it? And you know, and have you got stuff that would benefit other clubs?
Well, with the social media side of it, I when I started, I thought, right, how can we?
Have you got a social media background?
I had a printing graphic design,
but not social media.
It's not social media.
So that tells me like anybody can do similar.
Anybody can, yeah. You might not have the design talents, but anybody can push content out there, can't they?
Yeah.
So no, and then I'm not necessarily got a social media background, although I did do it for my business. So I had a printing business, which is the sort of thing I was doing. But when I started, I sort of made a pitch to Fred. I said, "Look, Fred, this is what I want to do. I want to, start again with Telford's media, and I want to almost promote us like we're a professional club." And I think it's worked. Oh well, the proof will be in the pudding, won't it? Come the season when we see how many players we got turning out for us at all levels, junior right to the seniors. Well, I think if you treat yourself like a professional club, then people want to get involved and they'll want to come and play for you, and they'll want their name out on your platform. And I think it's an important thing to do. And without I bigging myself up, but I think it's given the other guys at the club a bit of a boost as well. Like other people like Fred and who are involved in the club have said, we're going again here. We're growing, and that's how this podcast came about. It's little things, and more people get involved, and then people come on the committee and they have their ideas, and it snowballs really.
Yeah, it was quite obvious from me. Suddenly I could see a campaign. There was a campaign in the run up to the start of the new season. It was obvious we were signing new players, and I think for me, one of the big issues about playing outside of rugby league, let's call it, so whether it's in the past in the Southwest or in the Midlands, is that one of the weaknesses for a player is you don't really know if that game's going ahead at the weekend.
Yes.
Because either you might not get a team or the opposition might not get a team, and it might get called off the night before, and that is no way to retain players. So all of a sudden, what I started seeing was like, bang, another signing, bang, another signing. This looks like stability. It looks like growth, and if these guys are committing, fucking hell, at the ripe old age of 45, 46, whatever I am, maybe I can go around again.
Is that an exclusive? Are you,
no, it's not an exclusive, but I'm just
I know Phil will be watching, so...
But, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like all of a sudden, you're right, in that there's a platform there for players to give them a bit of exposure. Like you said, you get very little, and you love your games, and if you get to the final, that's amazing. But other than that, you get very little recognition in amateur sport. It used to be, we spoke about it a few times. You got your name in the paper back in the day, and it was amazing. You cut it out, put it in your scrapbook, and you kept it for the rest of your life.
I've still got mine.
Have you?
I've still got newspapers with my photograph in it.
Have you?
Yeah. So the other.
My point is, kids don't do that now, do they?
No.
It's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, it's on TikTok.
It's all about the likes, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think younger people, younger than our age, they like to have that profile online, don't they? So if they're playing a sport like rugby league, and I think it's our job to promote them people online, really. And the other thing I'd say is that it's not something we really think about, but there's untapped talent in the Midlands. I know of players who play for Telford, and we've both played at other clubs. I'm pretty sure they're sort of the talent of the future, really, and I think they could become a bigger name in a Super League, a Championship club, or I mean, even if it's just semi-professional, that the players are out there in a lot of the Midlands clubs. But unless they're given the exposure from people like us, that I don't think they're necessarily going to get spotted. So I think it's up to us as Midlands clubs to really promote ourselves the best we can to get these people seen, because there may be somebody there that's gone under the radar.
There's got to be, yeah.
I strongly believe there are players out there that if some of these Championship, Super League clubs came looking at them, I think they would realise, and they'll be tapping them up definitely.
So what about like the actual nuts and bolts? We spoke a little bit about little sections we might have each week in the podcast. We're going to do like a prediction. We wouldn't be able to do a sport podcast without doing like Super League prediction every week, and you'll just get to see how terrible I am at that. Shocking. I pick teams with my heart, and then not necessarily my brain. But what other stuff? Just putting you on the spot, innit?
Yeah. I don't know.
Who knows? We'll just see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the minute, things are a little bit fluid. We don't really know what sections we're going to have, and what questions we're going to ask and all that.
I think once we start getting guests on the show, it will start to develop a world of its own, and we'll see where it goes from there. I would have thought. I mean, I'm hoping that every person we bring on here taps us into a different area, or somewhere else we can go with it, or that's the hope anyway. So
or people get in touch and say, have you ever thought about doing, an example I had, let's say someone had a horrific injury, have you ever thought about doing, first care on the pitch side or something like that? If someone gets in touch with a particular theme, with a story to share about it.
Yeah, no, I think we've talked a little bit about the mental health side of it before as well. I think that's something we can potentially look at this year. What I would like to see the Midlands League doing as well. The clubs would have to get together to do something like this, but I think they should have a couple of themed rounds within the season. So one round is the mental health round or something like that, or one of the rounds is the heritage round. Where
that's a good idea.
It's stuff that's been done before, but it's not been done at local level before. So why can't we do something like that? Those little ideas could really grow. Or one round we're focusing on a charity or something like that. Like motor neuron disease has been big in the rugby league world. Do all the clubs get involved in a charity for 1 week to help promote something? Stuff like that. We just small ideas, and we see where it goes, and it can develop really.
Brilliant. Okay, so any. If you could, just to finish this, like anybody in the world, if you get one person on this podcast, right, don't matter who, whatever level, whatever, even if they fucking died, I don't care, who would it be?
Okay. I'll ask you that question. Who would you have on?
You can't ask me the same question I've asked you. Who would I have in connecting with rugby league?
Yeah, it's a harder question you think that, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you know what I'd love to speak to? Sonny Bill Williams. I'd love to speak to, incredible athlete. He dominated multiple sports, played for his country in different sport, boxed for his country, all that kind of stuff. And just the insight, it can't all just be the fact he was gifted with a lot of genetics. There's got to be other stuff there, which I think would just be fascinating to hear about. Like, I think that'd be an interesting podcast.
That'd be a top guest, that would, wouldn't it? I'd like to tap into somebody like just one of your top coaches. That's what I'd like to. If we could get into someone like you, a Brian Noble or a Tony Smith or somebody like that, I think that would make a really interesting guest.
Yeah, Tony Smith would be a great guest. Yeah.
I think any of the Smith brothers, to be honest, Rowan, Tony, Brian Smith was a fantastic coach, wasn't he? Yeah, anybody like that who's a Wayne Bennett.
Wayne Bennett,
yeah, because those guys have come up with the original ideas and stuff like that, and they've helped sort of develop the sport, and they've got the knowledge. So anybody like that, I think, could be a really interesting guest to have on. Brilliant.
Okay, so this is it. We're launching. We're off now. So all podcasts, all episodes from here on in will be either myself and Karl talking about a certain topic, or we'll have interesting guests, with a particular theme to attack. I'm really excited about it, and it's it's a great privilege and opportunity.
Where can people find the podcast?
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Where is it going to be?
No, we're not sharing it. All right, well, there is a website, rugbyleagueoutsiders.com, where that'd be like the centralised hub. We're also going to upload the video podcast to YouTube, so you can just search on YouTube for Rugby League Outsiders. We're all across all the socials, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Again, just search for either RL Outsiders or Rugby League Outsiders. I think one of the easiest ways, if you want to chat to us, if you want to be part of the conversation, would be Twitter. So you just fire tweets out there, but you can message us on any of the platforms, and then the audio version of all these podcasts will be pumped out across Spotify, all your usual podcast players. So whatever you get your podcast from, have a search for us in there, and please, it might just be clicking the thumb, sharing, leaving a little review, 5-star review, whatever. You might think that's nothing. That is huge for growing the podcast, and it's huge for letting us know that we're on the right track and we're delivering interesting stuff, and that you're getting value from. So remember that. Anywhere else that we should have said? That's about it, really, isn't it?
That's it. I think
everywhere, basically, everywhere we can.
Every base, yeah. Coming live to a stadium near you.
Can you hear me now? All right, mate. Well, on to the next episode.
Yeah, fantastic. Time.